Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Castle Point's Cabinet meeting on the 20th of September 2023. So let's get going. First of all, I'd like Cabinet members to introduce themselves, so I'll move over to Councillor Warren Gibson.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Councillor Warren Gibson. I'm Cabinet Member for Strategic Planning.
Good evening, everyone. Councillor Steve Mountford, Cabinet Member for Resources.
Good evening, everybody. Councillor Russell Savage, and I'm the Cabinet Member for People and Community.
Good evening, everybody. Councillor Barry Palmer, Economic Growth and Climate Action.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Councillor Carol Sate. I'm Health, Wellbeing and Housing.
Evening, everyone. I'm Councillor Tom Gibson, Cabinet Member for Leisure Assets and Events.
Good evening, Councillor Michael Fuller, Cabinet Member for Environment.
Thank you, members. Okay, members, have we any apologies for absence? No?
Chairman, there are no apologies for absence.
No, they're all here, I can see that. Item 2, members' interests. Councillor Fuller.
Chairman, I'd like to declare a non-pecuniary interest in relation to item 11 on the agenda this evening, in that I am a long-term member of Hadley Park Lawn Tennis Club, as is my wife, and I also hold a position as a team captain, and Hadley Park Lawn Tennis Club is mentioned in the report in section 11.
Thank you, Councillor Fuller. Councillor Palmer.
Thank you, Leader. I have to declare a non-pecuniary interest in 2 items on the agenda tonight. Item 8, the new housing in Linden Way, as I live next door but one to the development. And also item 13, Thorney Bay Pavilion, as Secretary of Canvey Bay Watch South Ward Council, who's campaigned for this for the last 8 years. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Palmer. No other interest, members? No? Okay, minutes, members, is it right that I sign the minutes as being correct from the previous meeting? Agreed. Thank you very much. Loretta, can I borrow your pen? Oh. Take it, huh? Thank you very much. Okay, so we've got members' questions. I've got one notification of members wishing to ask questions. Councillor Hart. No other members? Thank you. Okay, moving on then. Item 4 is the forward plan. Steve, Councillor Melford. Is it? No. Hang on. Should have done that. Sorry, members. Bear with me. Oh, yeah, sorry, members. We have changed it now. Forward plan is for information only. I'll get used to the new ways, but forward plan is information only. So any questions, members, on the forward plan? No? Okay, thanks very much. Item 5, off-street parking review, update from the Environment Policy and Scrutiny Committee. We've got Councillor Fuller and Councillor Savage. Who's going to go first? Councillor Fuller?
Chairman, it's going to be me who's going to read the report. See, I'm not reading all of the report. There's been a lot of work done, as members will be aware. This was also discussed at the last Cabinet in August. The purpose of the report this evening is to update the Cabinet on the work of the Environment Policy and Scrutiny Committee in respect of its review of the operation of council-owned car parks. The recommendations are 3. Firstly, that the Cabinet endorses a recommendation of the Environmental Policy and Scrutiny Committee to proceed with a variation to Schedule 1 and 2 of the Borough of Castle Point Off-Street Parking Places General Order 2013 to incorporate the Knightswick car park with its current waiting restrictions and car parking charges so that parking conditions can be enforced when the council takes over the operation of the car park on termination of the smart parking contract. Secondly, it is recommended the Cabinet gives delegated authority to the Head of Environment in consultation with the Cabinet Member for Environment to consider any objections that are received in respect of the proposed amendment to the Borough Castle Point Off-Street Parking Places General Order. And thirdly, it notes the Committee's decision to set up a cross-party member task and finish working group to undertake a wider and more detailed review of the operation of the council's car parks, including the Knightswick car park. And I can inform Cabinet this evening, in fact, that there has been the first informal meeting of that task and finish group as met. I believe it met earlier this week. So quite simply, I just ask that the Cabinet make these recommendations. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Fuller. Members, any questions? No? Okay, members, there are 3 recommendations that agreed. Thank you very much. Item 6, Corporate Performance Scorecard, is now Councillor Steve Mountford.
Thank you, Leader. Okay, the Corporate Performance Scorecard for 23-24, the purpose of the report is to set out the proposed set of indicators for the performance scorecard for 23-24. The scorecard allows the Cabinet to monitor the performance in key areas of the Council's business as set out in the corporate plan. The recommendation is that Cabinet agrees the Corporate Performance Scorecard indicators for 23-24. The core indicators on the scorecard have remained the same for a number of years, although each year the scorecard is refreshed to ensure the indicators remain relevant. For the current year, the highlights: there is a proposal to change 3 of the existing indicators as set out in paragraph 5.3 of the report. There is also a proposal to add a further 4 indicators to the scorecard, which is set out in paragraph 5.4, including the rationale for the new indicators. Paragraph 5.5 then sets out all of the indicators into separate tables for each of the 4 priority areas: economy and growth, people, place and environment. As well as a 5th table is what we call enablers, which is leadership, democracy, partnerships and resources. The tables include a performance for 22-23, the target for 22-23 and the proposed target for the current year. Appendix 1 sets out the proposed changes as referenced in the main body of the report, and Appendix 2 sets out the proposed set of indicators for monitoring in the current fiscal year, and which, if agreed, will be reported to Cabinet starting with the Q1 performance at the next Cabinet meeting in October. In conclusion, the proposed indicators will allow us, as a Cabinet, to better understand the performance of the Council, including challenging performance where it does not meet the high standards we set and expect. It also helps demonstrate the effectiveness of all the work to those who live, work and visit in our borough, and I'm happy to take any questions before moving the recommendation to Cabinet as set out in the report.
Thank you, Councillor Mountford.
Thank you.
Members, any questions? No questions? Okay, then, members, it's recommendation that the performance indicator for 2023-24 is recommended. Is that agreed? Agreed. Thank you very much. Okay, moving on to item 7, the Food and Health and Safety Service Plan 23-24. Councillor Fuller.
Thank you, Chairman. The purpose of this report this evening is to seek approval for the Council's Food and Health and Safety Service Plan for 2023-24. To give you the background to this, it's largely a procedural item this evening. The Food Standards Agency requires every local authority to produce a food service plan in accordance with the guidelines set out in the agency framework agreement on local authority food law enforcement. The plan provides the basis on which the Council's food service delivery will be monitored and audited by the Food Standard Agency and must be produced in line with the common format set out by the agency. The agency states that the service plan must be approved by the relevant member forum, thus, to ensure transparency and accountability. The second section of the service plan covers health and safety regulation and requires every local authority to publish and make public a risk-based service plan covering our health and safety activities. And this report therefore seeks approval of the 2023-24 health service plan, which is actually attached, as you'll see, to your agenda. So the recommendation for Cabinet this evening is that you approve the Council Food and Health and Safety Service Plan for 2023-24.
Thank you, Councillor Fuller. Members, any questions? Members of the other councillors? No? Thank you, members. Right, Councillor Fuller has read out the report. Is that agreed, members? Agreed. Thank you very much. Okay, moving on. Agenda item 8, construction of new local authority housing developments. members, we decided to actually defer this subject until the following next month's Cabinet meeting. Is that agreed, members? Thank you very much. Moving on, transforming together, programme review, board update. Angela.
Thank you, Chair. If I can hand over, please, to Deborah Cook, who is the senior responsible owner for this programme. Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you, Chair. The report is an update from the Transforming Together Programme Review Board, which has now met twice. It's a self-explanatory report, and you're asked to kind of note the contents of that. Happy to take questions if there are any, Chair.
If there are no questions, then it's falls for the recommendation to be put.
Oh, right, sorry. I thought we was going to have a presentation. Sorry.
No, that's all right.
I'm waiting for it to come up on the screen.
No, sorry, that was just the camera.
Is that noted then, members? Thank you. I wasn't falling asleep, promise. Okay, members, moving on. Item 10 is the Public Space and Place Funds. Councillor Tom Gibson.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, it's a good news story, this one. One of the things that we hear on the doorsteps when we're campaigning is how much people want to see a bit more investment in their open space and public areas. So, yeah, happy to present this report to Cabinet. So a bit of background, the Council's allocated £140,000 for improvements to the public realm and play spaces on the mainland during this financial year. Following an invitation to local groups, clubs, etc. to submit applications for grant funding of up to £1,000 or more in exceptional circumstances, a total of £6,060 has been paid to date to successful applicants. That leaves £134,000 still to be allocated. You can see, if you scroll down to 4.5, some of the proposed projects that we're looking to move ahead with. These include a conversion of 2 of the tennis courts at John Burroughs Park into a multi-use games area. This will include low-level wooden panelling and around the perimeter fencing. We are looking to upgrade the remaining two tennis courts at John Burroughs. We're looking to acquire some additional lights for the Christmas tree at Hart Road. We're looking to put an accessible path in Funsey Recreation Ground. We're looking at a sensory garden in Richmond Park and up to 30 additional composite picnic benches to be sited at various locations. So that our young people and all residents have somewhere to sort of congregate in our open spaces. And there's an extra one at the bottom there. It's external lighting to the entrance of Castle Point Bowling Club after they submitted an application recently. All the proposed works need to be completed this financial year, as any unspent funding will not be carried forward into the new financial year. So with that in mind, I'll just ask that Cabinet approves the recommendation that we endorse the proposed projects as set out in the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gibson. Members, any questions? Councillor Mumford.
Thank you, Chair. Leader. I just wanted to say that thank you very much, because I think when I was first elected, one of the first motions I put in was to request accessibility improvements to the play areas. And whilst we're only doing one at this point, some parks already do have paths into the recreation grounds. I think this is really, really good news for all concerned, even if it's just people pushing pushchairs. And I hope that we can continue making sure all of our recreation grounds have got accessible paths. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mountford. And I think we all look forward to seeing those projects go forward. And so, members, is that agreed? Thank you very much. Moving on. Agenda item 11, Lawn Tennis Association funding offer to improve council-owned tennis courts. Councillor Tom Gibson.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, hopefully another good news story. This is a report on LTA funding that we're looking to acquire to regenerate the tennis courts at King George V playing fields on Canvey. Just as a bit of background, the Ready to Rally initiative is the initiative brought in by the LTA to encourage residents increase usage and raise income from investment in park tennis courts. It's seen as a great opportunity to achieve multiple health and social targets whilst being sustainable and providing an improved sporting option for players. Some of the barriers to participation at the LTA noted during their research were not knowing where the closest courts are, not knowing how to book or play on the courts, and poor condition of tennis facilities. The LTA has surveyed the park tennis courts in Castle Point and has classified them as average in the case of the 4 courts at John Boroughs, but unplayable in the case of the 3 courts at King George V Recreation Ground. It concluded that within the next 2 to 3 years, the courts will be in a critical condition. It also noted that there is no opportunity for the players to book courts and that the courts are susceptible to misuse, vandalism and antisocial behaviour. So the proposal is for, in the case of King George V, the refurbishment would include, if we accept the funding, resurfacing / lining of the 3 courts, provision of new nets and posts and new perimeter fencing, and new smart access gate, which is a condition of the funding. The potential LTA investment is £79,000. This is an investment that will bring currently derelict facilities back into use, and will hopefully bring many social and health benefits to the residents of Canvey Island in particular, but Castle Point as a whole. So we would, I would recommend that Cabinet approve the recommendations before you. Thank you.
Councillor Gibson. Members, any queries, any questions? Councillor Hart.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Councillor Gibson. The question I've got is regarding, you say in this report that the restricted access to the site on Canvey, will that be extended to other sites? Because I only asked because in John Burroughs one, I know they're looking to transform 2 of them into a mugger situation, and the other ones be refurbished. But then people do use them for other things other than tennis. If it's a grass court, obviously you couldn't, but the hard surface ones, that people do use them when people aren't playing tennis so much. So if you extend it over other courts, then other people would lose out. So that's my question. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor, for your question. The answer in short is no, we're not looking to roll it out to any other sites this time. The LTA funding was available for Hadley, but a condition of that funding is to install the gate access system and have to charge for them. So our thinking was, whilst we've got a facility there that is free, accessible and usable as it is, we didn't see a need to accept the funding and therefore start charging for it.
Thank you. And I think if this is a success, which I'm sure it will be, I'm sure we can look at other areas in the borough. I think this is an opportunity for us to work with the Lawn Tennis Association, and if we can make a success of this, it'd be great for the whole borough and move on to other locations. Okay, members, the recommendation, is that agreed? Thank you very much. Moving on. Okay, agenda item 12, the financial update. Councillor Manford.
Thank you, Leader. Okay, to start, we look back at the last financial year for 22-23. For the general fund revenue, there was a minor overspend of 35,000, which is just 0.4% of the gross budget. This takes into account a number of appropriations into reserves, which otherwise would have resulted in an underspend of just over 5.1 million. So we're being prudent now by allocating the funds into reserves, by taking decisions now to build up the reserves to ensure they remain healthy. The main reserve amounts are allocating funds for the Castle Point plan, setting aside more funding for the Council's transformation programme, and increasing the reserves for carbon reduction. Table 1 sets out the details of the underspend. In the majority of the cases, we've received more income than was budgeted across a number of services, and specifically relating to interest receivable due to the higher interest rates caused by the current economic climate. There are a few other areas where lower than budget was possible. These budgets will be reviewed and potentially reduced where appropriate to reflect a more realistic run rate. One significant item of additional income relates to a VAT refund on the leisure services. The Council was part of a successful group litigation against His Majesty's Revenue and Customs, and pleased to announce that we've secured a refund of 2.8 million. The VAT refund of 2.8 million and the higher interest receivable and the small underspends against budgeted amounts provides just over 5 million being allocated to reserves. This, as I've said previously, will be placed into reserves to fund future projects and initiatives, and with so many councils facing turmoil due to the difficulties being faced by the national crisis of high inflation and the cost of living crisis, affecting so many families, this really is a good news story for Castle Point. And it's further proof that the combined independent parties are a coalition of success. We're delivering exactly what our residents wanted and more. The general fund capital has a small overspend of 40,000, and the two main overspends are firstly, disabled facilities grants where we were able to complete more work to our residents than was expected. This overspend gets funding from the DFG grant and therefore has no impact on the council, and it's very positive to providing more than planned for such an important area of services where we provide. Secondly, planning costs in relation to the Knightswick refurbish scheme will be funded from the Knightswick Reserve. For the housing revenue account, HRA, there was a deliberate overspend of 304,000, which was planned for an early loan repayment of 2.5 million. This was not budgeted to be repaid until future years. By making this repayment early, the council secured a discount, and we will now save on interest payments going forward, further protecting and minimising risk to the council. The overspend is contained within the HRA reserves. Table 5 in the report details some of the routine variances. The HRA capital budgets in Table 6 in the report, where we see there is a 6k underspend. There is nothing material to mention, with the larger variances being in response to reactive maintenance issues which cannot be foreseen when setting a budget. That concludes the review for the previous financial year. Now we come to the current financial year and looking at the position at the end of Q1, which is as at June 2023. Obviously it's early in the year and therefore the general fund revenue is forecast at a £503,000 underspend is a guide only. The forecasted underspend is predominantly being caused by higher interest rate receivable from significantly higher than budgeted, which is a consequence of continued interest base rate set by the Bank of England. The finance team are reviewing the forecast interest receivable amounts and bearing in mind the factors which may affect this. All costs and revenue items are being monitored, with an exception that some other variances may occur as an inevitable consequence of the volatile and inflationary climate that we are experiencing at present. At the end of the first quarter, GF Capital was forecasting to be in line with budget, albeit with a risk on the Thorney Bay scheme, which is detailed in the notes. As we'll see from the next report on the agenda, this risk has materialised, and if the following report is approved, the budget will then be amended accordingly. For next, the HRA, like the GF, is forecasting an underspend on its revenue budget at this stage because of the interest receivable being higher, and the HRA capital budget is currently forecasting to be in line with budget. Thank you very much, and I commit this report for Cabinet approval and happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Councillor Mount. Very comprehensive report. Thank you very much. Members, is any questions at all for members? No? Okay then, members. Then the recommendation set out 1 to 10. Is this agreed? Agreed. Thank you very much, members. Item 13, Thorney Bay Pavilion. Councillor Palmer, Councillor Mountford again.
Thank you, Leader. The purpose of this report is to inform the Cabinet on the progress of the Thorney Bay Pavilion project. This project is largely funded by the Coastal Community Fund from the Department of Levelling Up Housing and Communities. To agree, the Castle Point Borough Council contribute and approve the appointment of the lead contractor. This project has been going on for quite a number of years now, and the costs have gone up because of the delays and because of various things. And it reached a point where we are at a point now where it is affordable with a small amount of money topped up from the council. It meets so many of the council's priorities in their corporate plan with regards to people, environment and place, as you can see in the report. The money itself also, because of the delays, we've also had £70,000 snatched back by the government, which, because of we're going to try and get some of it back because the Environment Agency has imposed a condition on the pilings that's going to cost us more money than we anticipated. So we're hoping to get a bit of that back off the government. This has been going on, as I say, for quite some time, and as the Secretary of Canby Baywatch, which is 9 years next month, initially all we wanted was somewhere to go for a wee, but now we're going to have a state-of-the-art pavilion as well. So I recommend this wholeheartedly to the Cabinet. Thank you.
Members, any questions? Oh, Ian Bell?
Thank you, Chairman. Can I just provide members with an update? The report makes reference to, and the recommendation makes reference to, funding via the South Essex Parking Partnership. We do actually need to make sure, obviously, it's in compliance with that, and therefore there is an approval process that we also have to go through with the South Essex Parking Partnership. And I don't think the next meeting until December, I think it is this year. So what we will do between tonight, assuming the members agree with the recommendations, is we will work with the architects and the prospective contractor to do two things. One is the value engineering exercise, which we've always said that we would do with the contractor to try and reduce the cost down, but also obviously make sure that we present the case to the parking partnership. It's unlikely that they will reject the proposal, but if they do, then we've got contingencies in place, and if necessary, we will obviously have to bring a report back to Cabinet, but we're hoping to avoid that. I just thought I'd provide that update for you.
Okay, thank you there. Members, last thing we want is another hold up. Yeah. So, members, recommendations are set out there in the report. Is that agreed? Agreed. Thank you very much. Okay, then item 14. I've got the good news for the staff. Is the Christmas office arrangements. To inform Cabinet of the arrangements of the operations of the Council during Christmas and New Year. Recommend just to note the closure arrangements for Christmas and the New Year period, that the Council offices will reopen for business on Tuesday, January 24th. Merrick? January the 2nd. January 2024. Well, you know what, it is Christmas, and I was getting a little bit sort of carried away. I want the staff to like me. Is that agreed, members? Angela was threatening. It was right. Agenda item 16, matters referred from the Policy Scrutiny Committee, review of the Public Space Protection Order. Councillor Savage.
Good evening, everybody. Yes, so the purpose of the report to inform Cabinet of the review undertaken by the Scrutiny Committee with respect to the Public Space Protection Order that was issued for Roscommon Way back in September of 2022. And the background of this, as the residents of Canby fully know, and some of the residents on the west side of Benfleet, is the ongoing issues that were, you know, the people affected by some of the excessive noise, the dangers of other road users, risk of damage to property and other nuisances that these cruisers were doing while they gathered down at Roscommon Way there. So we had a meeting with Paul Hogburn, who's the new Chief Inspector, Community Policing Chief, several residents, and we've set up a task group with a couple of residents, with the Police Chief Inspector, and we will look further into improvements with respect to that Public Space Protection Order. One thing I will say is that it was universally recognised that it has been effective. You know, even the residents who were really chomping the bit to get this put in have said that there has been a massive improvement since the independent group issued that order, you know, last year. So you know, it is working. The police have issued fines, and they have actually used what they call Section 59. They've actually repossessed vehicles off of some of these guys and girls who are driving dangerously in the area. So there are options for us also to make things better down there as a council. We're not just going to leave this to the police, and we will actively encourage Essex County Council, the Highways Division, to help us with some of those improvements down there. But it's just to note, really, the Task and Finish group is going ahead, and I'll be leading that group. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, Savage, thank you very much. Members, are there any questions? No members? Members note the report? No. Okay then, members, that concludes the formal business for tonight. Good night. I'll see you next time. Many thanks.